Station.
I'm Emily Lutzker.
And I'm Anna Kamasia. Today, International Arrivals speaks with media artist Lau Wai, who utilizes personal and historic archives, cinematic imagery, popular culture, and emerging technologies to investigate how history, fiction, personal memory, and virtuality collide in the process of identity formation. Their practice involves moving images, new media, photography, sculptural objects, and installation. Welcome.
Welcome, Wai. Great to have you with us.
Hello. Thank you
Hi.
for having me, though. This is exciting.
Even despite our
Hi.
technical difficulties.
And the breakdown of my network as well. But now it's all sorted. So.
Exactly.
It
So
was
you just had, sorry, Emily, I cut you
it
off.
was perfect why we had two of you on the screen for a moment there, because I feel like that was foreshadowing for our conversation about how many of me there are, or how many of you there are, or how many theys are talking to each other.
Right.
In your film, The Cast of the Invisible, you said there's 103 copies of you. Was that right? 103?
Thousand
and three.
Even more.
Okay. Even
So, Anna,
more.
at least we got two.
Yes, that's right. We got two.
So it seems like we experience that in reality as well. I guess that is like my partial questions that I'm trying to raise from my work. And then now we're experiencing today.
Exactly. It seems so fitting, really. You just opened an exhibition at Jane Lombard Gallery called Facial Recognition, which coincidentally has two of our other podcast guests in it, Helena Metafaria, Azita Marikani, and our good friend Kambuyo Lojimi. And the work included in that exhibition, Decrypted Sentient 02, is a new piece featuring your movements that are puppeteering an image of a computer-generated woman in conversation with another computer-generated woman who is the same, but even more digitally rendered. And they are discussing their existence. For our listeners, could you tell us a little bit more about that work?
Yeah, sure. Basically, in the video, there were two digital entity, which is referencing myself. In most of my work in the past few years that I created, I use my body and my head as a reference to create this digital avatar. And the reason why I use myself is, first of all, it's out of convenience, because I'm the one who can always consent myself to be copied and to be like reinterpreted and to be transformed into whatever way. It allows it to have this complex conversations about me, like in the physical present, as well as me in a digital present. And then in the work, the Decrypted Sentient, it has these two copies referencing me. But then they were like having this conversation about whether either of one is a copy, and they both thought they were the original, and then they were both trying to like figure out a way to identify the other one is a copy. But then they were like experiencing this like difficulties about like finding the purpose of being there, and also finding like why they were created, and all that question were raised between them. And one of the characters in the video who dressed in a more casual outfit, like as someone who may be like working in the office and dressed like in a semi like formal way with like dark dark blue shirt and like a pants as well. And then the other person who is actually dressed like a motion capture actor, which I use this facade in many of my other works as well. Because for me, the presence of a motion capture actor is always behind the scene. Like in most of the production, you will always see the end product, which is something else. they were always like performing behind the scenes, and then they were always being transformed into, let's say, like an animal, an avatar, a robot, or like something else rather than themselves. But the purpose of dressing in that form is to create virtuality, is to create something else for you to see. And so they were always at this in-between stage of reality and virtuality. And they were always being like transformable.
It's such a fabulous layering because it's the person in the motion sensitive suit is actually a virtually generated person. So it's like the person that represents the real, or the avatar that represents the real, is an avatar themselves.
Right.
Is not we're not even seeing a representation of the real, we're seeing a representation of the virtually generated person who is dressed as the real.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's interesting too, just in terms of art, like you said, it's a very new understanding of sort of virtuality and reality. And I think, questions around repetition, originality, copies have always been part of art historical discourse. But I think that bringing the virtual world into that has really shifted how we understand those concepts to work. The idea of live or originality or copies or reproductions or repetition, all of those things are now, we have to rethink them. Absolutely. And I think that that's very interesting in your work, that it challenges those kind of preoccupations that art has had. It's interesting on an art discourse level too.
Oh, that's really great how you put it into this like art history context as well.
I think absolutely that when people were starting to do things in the digital world, I always thought it was really interesting because it mirrors this world, but you can add, detract, build upon to it. And so it's kind of really fascinating what people are doing. But then I think in your work, what I understand about your work is that it brings it back to identity, right? And is identity linked to our body, or is identity linked to our virtual avatars? Anyway.
And who are we, right? Who is the avatar? Who is the real me, as your characters are asking each other? And I can't help think, Anna, by the way that you're talking about it, of the phenomenon when you're standing in front of a mirror and there's a mirror behind you.
Yeah.
It's the sort of the mirror to infinity. It's like an infinite selves.
But also in your work, it feels like you have an opportunity, or you take the opportunity for that first avatar, let's say, to become all these other things. And so it's not linked to a singular notion of self, what you said, 1,003 copies, and each of them slightly different.
That's sort of like represented in another work of mine, which I think you might seen well, at the Decrypted Gallery.
The Cast of the Invisible, is that the title?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, where really there's a real play between virtual and physical existence, and where those blur and where they overlap, but also where they separate. And perhaps you could elaborate on the way that you are interested in that line between one's virtual and physical existence, and sort of how you see. I've talked about how maybe I see that blurring, but how do you see those lines between, this, what you called virtuality and then reality, in terms of understanding your work a little more?
I basically developed this interest into like knowing more about how we encounter virtuality from just like a few years ago. And the first like triggering point was the worry that I have about encountering all those virtual entity that I could engage with, and then they makes me feel like they have this human-like quality. That was the first time I started to have questions about what is virtual, what is human, and then what determine who we are, and then what determine what they are if they are mimicking human as closely as possible. And I started to like just from downloading different like AI related product like on the phone, and then also like later on download different software from on the computer as well. And I guess like the most common AI related product that everyone has been encountering is like the text generated AI product, and like for example like ChatGPT. And there were actually a lot of like other different types of AI related product that we might be using, and we might be using and we are using without knowing that they are actually AI related. And for example, when we were like dealing with our bank request, and we always like have to like talk to the chatbot, and sometimes like when we have like problems with like different services, for example like the network that I just my network has just went down, and then I have to like call up like the company and such, but most of the time they would just send you to this like AI person or like AI chatbot to help you solve the question, the problem. So like there was increased amount of AI trying to replace what human has been doing for decade or for 1,000 years even. And that makes me worries a lot. And then the other thing that makes me concerned is those text to video generative like product that you can just like type whatever sentences and then they will like generate like a video or like an image for you. And that sort of content could be like force created. And that is another thing that like makes me concerned about AI at the moment. And the more I sort of like communicating with AI, the more I try to engage with it, the more I realize like how convincing they could be. Like I think like nowadays, most of the time when I talk to like maybe ChatGPT, for example, I don't think I would be able to quickly like immediately identify that is an algorithm. That
Right.
is not that is not an actual human beings talking.
Gotten so good to imitate us.
Yeah. I think that is the relationship that I've been having with AI. And so I'm using technology in my work as a mean to sort of like maybe criticize about what they could do to us or what they have done to us already.
So it's almost like using technology to critique technology.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. That's what I'm trying to do right
And I
now,
think
I
there's a
think.
real fear of like, um, as you were saying, that all of a sudden you put all these prompts into some kind of AI, but that the first initial generations are controlled by whom and in what way? For example, I was just talking with another artist who is making a coloring book, and she's part of a collective that are moms and artists. So she wanted to do this coloring book. Show me an image of a woman breastfeeding, and the I don't know whether she was using Chat GPT or another, but she said it said inappropriate. And then it said, show me a woman giving birth. And then it was like this, blonde woman holding a baby. And that's not really giving birth. All of these things, I think, then come back to influence how we think about certain things. And so I'm curious now as to, are there things that you sort of push to see the limits of what AI can do?
Mm, I think in some way it is, but then at the same time, I think I'm also enjoying the process
Mm.
of seeing how closely that technology could create something which is based on me. based on my like facial features and everything.
Yeah.
And the whole process was like tedious as well. But then at the same time, the outcome makes me experience this like unkindly feeling, but in the first hand, which is so weird. I don't think I'll be able to experience this kind of emotion through different medium, I think.
No, it's absolutely uncanny. I mean, and how it sort of makes us aware of our consciousness in a way, by showing that these AI generated avatars they're aware of their own consciousness. So then as the viewer watching it, we're thinking, well, you know, who am I to question the consciousness of that sort of fake being? And then, but what does that make me? Does it make me less valid because now a computer generated avatar is as conscious as I am? I think this is the real kind of crisis and anxiety around artificial intelligence and virtual worlds and virtual life.
Mm, exactly. And that also remind me of I think that is the kind of product that some companies in different part of the world has been developing now, and it's already a real service like open to the public. In those company, you could basically you could like create a virtual avatar with the data, with the text like that you gave to them, with the voice recording that you gave to them, and then you go there, you can basically like scan yourself, and then they would like build something just exactly like you based on all the data that you consent to give them. And I think like one of the journalists from, I forgot which like media, she actually did that and try out that product, and then that company like generated like a virtual avatar of her who can actually do her job as presenting like news in front of others, like on the screen. And when you look at the image, you first of all you wouldn't notice that it's a fake person. And after like a couple minutes, and then the real person came in and then saying that like this is actually the product that like they gave to me based on the data that I gave to them. And it's just crazy that like all this technology is available right now, and how common that it could become is just a matter of time, I think.
Right.
Like,
And of course, I think about, well, then, all right, so this reporter gave all of her information to this company and it generates this AI of her, but then who owns that AI? You know,
right.
who owns that? Is it the original woman? Original, I put that in quotes, original woman, or is it the company that generated it will then own whatever that new generated avatar does, all of the work product? Who owns that? I mean,
Mm,
which of course you brought up, in explaining your work, that it was easier for you to use yourself uh, as an image for your avatars, because then, you know, you didn't have to ask anyone for permission to use the imagery and to
mm.
use the motions. But I think we're getting into, the wild west of copyright with AI.
Right, right. Totally. And and that's the thing about like all this company. They basically they use the public resources, use everyone's like output in order to like create their content. And I do have like problems with that. Like I sort of like I don't know, like ethically I'm really against that.
And what if they then used your artwork to then generate content?
That's
This
the
is what
thing.
art
So That's a good question. So that's why like nowadays whatever software that I use, I try to like look up on their like setting to find out if there's like a private like setting that I can choose. So even with ChatGPT, I set it to private so then they cannot like put the questions or like the content that I input into the cloud in order
Mm.
to help them generate content. But then I also have doubt about like whether they really gonna set it to private or they actually like send whatever into their cloud, even though I didn't consent them to do that.
Well, just by signing the user agreements, you might be consenting. What do we know?
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
The thing that I keep thinking about beyond Black Mirror episodes
and
is that
severance and everything,
is
so
that
much.
but I was just going to say that like the way that we're integrating things so that it's really hard now to tell like virtuality from the physical reality in the sense that I'll give you an example is a friend was visiting me in LA with her daughter and we were driving down Crenshaw and the daughter says, "Oh, I live here." And we were like, "What? You live here?" And she's like, "Yeah, I used to live just around the corner here from playing Grand Theft Auto with her uncle." So, but you know what I mean? So that reality of Crenshaw in LA is mapped onto Grand Theft Auto. And so she knows that real physical
Oh.
space because she was in the artificial physical space. And so I find that that's also fascinating in your work where you take these real spaces and real bodies so that it's, and then put them into this real space that mimics outside space too, so that in our knowledge system, both of those get melded together, right? The world
Mm,
in AI and the world, the physical world. And I think that's fascinating. Like where do we start to mesh the two? So I don't know if you have
mm.
thoughts about that at all, of like
Right.
how they mimic each other.
Oh, I guess in our near future, I feel like the confusion will sort of increase and the gap between two of them will sort of like getting closer and closer. For example, I'm teaching in some schools and then like I can see some art students like nowadays like they're doing undergraduate and then at the age of like 20 around their 20s and most of them when you talk about drawings they will think about iPad
Mm-hmm.
and then they could do like really fantastic like drawings on their iPad and then they really know how to utilize this digital like tool
Yeah.
uh in a really good way. But then if you give them like paper and pens, they would lose that ability immediately. I still don't know whether like for those part would that actually enhance our creativity or actually is it limits our creativity? I still don't have an answer to that yet, but it's just a really interesting observation that I could see at some point, and I could never like expect that could happen in my lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean we're right. We're witnessing, the loss of the real, the loss of the physical universe as we've decided that it is. We all are
Or
mutually
as
agreed
we
upon, our real, but through this kind of multiplicity, this multi-layered simulation, it feels like it's gone. But I think that your work is so unique in that way that it's bringing these questions up, in an art context, which it is very different, kind of using the technology of this sort of multiplicity of worlds and simulated worlds, into something that we've always thought the art world kind of represents, like the real, the tangible, the stuff that you can buy. Paintings have an aura or whatever, discourse has happened throughout history, but bringing it into the art world in a way lets us not ask these questions just in a academic and cultural discourse, but in the field of what's value and what is it to be human and what is it to make things, and where does creativity start?
I think that's also really important. Like, I feel like to me, the existence of art and the value of art is they they could sort of like they could sort of respond to the world in a different ways that like most people wouldn't experience that. Like I mean art just not in like contemporary art. I'm saying like for like movies and like music and all that forms of art as well. And I think the importance of art is to respond to certain like urgent issues at that time, at that particular time, and that particular era of mankind. And I think to me right now, like the urgency that I have, and then the things that I feel like is needed to respond to are this like digital sort of creations of like digital world that we are heading into right now. So I guess like that is also one of the reasons why I'm getting into it in the past few years. Because beforehand, I'm a really analog person. And I did like film photography for like more than 10 years, and then I do things like mostly like by hands and such. And but then I sort of feel like the urgency switched a lot in the past like 6 7 years or the past 10 years. And the more I see how the world is heading to a certain direction within the digital creation, the more I feel like the increase of urgency of like responding that. Maybe like the more different voices that we can hear, like we can put into the world, maybe it could sort of like benefit people from seeing that, from seeing certain things in different ways. I think that's what I hope.
I hope so too. I feel like kinship towards you, because that's sort of why we started the podcast, is to hear those different voices, issues, and talk about their work and their experiences.
But I think this also feeds into this idea of multiplicity that you were talking about, that both of you were talking about, of these layers, and this, by replicating yourself or oneself, you're able to have this multiple sense of the self. Let's call it that, for lack of a better word. And so I wonder how that feeds into your understanding of kind of identity, and if there's a multiplicity of identity that's linked to the work as well.
Okay. The multiplicity of identity to me is mostly related to how we experience our daily life. For example, like when we're going to like do our jobs, for example, when I'm going to teach, I have to like put on this persona of like someone who's gonna tell you what this could do, what that could do. And that is like some kind of role that I have to like put on. It's like some kind of like outfit that I have to put on in order to perform that. But then once I leave the classroom, then I wouldn't continue that character, I guess. Like and then I would switch to another persona. I would just like be myself, like walking on the street. And but when I'm at home, and when I was back to my hometown, and then when I see my family, then I would have to put on this like daughter persona. And when I see my partner, and I have to put on different persona, but also they are myself as well at the same time. But then they are different part of myself. And I think in terms of multiplicity of identity, that's what I think about. Is there's different roles, this different facade, this different outfit that we have to put on, in addition to our own self. to sort of like interact with different peoples every day. And that's sort of like role playing. It was also interpreted in one of my work, The Cast of the Invisible. In the video, that was a part that like the protagonist, which is the motion capture actor, they were saying that I've been doing a lot of like I've been acting, playing out different characters. Like I perform as this, I perform this, and I perform this and this. But then none of the role was my choice. And then those are all scripted. Basically, it's almost like a little reflection about I don't know, like contemporary, like modern society life that we live in, I
Yeah.
think.
Absolutely. I think it's Irving Goffman, who's a sociologist who talks about the performance of self in everyday life
Oh,
and
right.
talks about it in those performative terms too, of like the scene and the set and the character and you know, as you say, donning a not costume necessarily, but a different hat or wearing a different
Mm,
outfit, I think you said. So yeah,
mm,
absolutely.
Different role, right? For the I'm now, the professor role. I'm now the lover role. I think that it's also exacerbated by the idea that we have our online personalities, our Instagram person,
mm,
versus my real personality. That's another one. Or we see
right.
through their media generated personalities.
And for a long time, I think it was games like Second Life, where people would create these avatars and then they could choose so many things that didn't necessarily align with who they were. For example, many men apparently chose to be females in Second Life.
Oh, I feel like that part is actually beneficial for a lot of people in the sense that they could be something else. They could like transform their identities and such, and they can go beyond what they are experiencing every day. And that part of virtuality, I'm kind of like embracing, I think.
And I think that is the draw, right? Is that people can give up sort of the shackles of this life to
Mm,
be in this other life, right? In whatever way that you want that to be.
yeah.
We do it as children and our games of make believe. Today I'm going to be
Absolutely.
like the princess, or the king. This is one of the wonderful things that humans do is we pretend.
Yeah.
And just back to what Emily was like mentioning about this relationship between virtuality and physicality, uh, that also like reminds me about how virtuality could sort of interfere in our daily life. Like for example, I think nowadays when I look at like cosmetics, like surgery,
Mm.
in this few years, it's starting like to look at some people who would actually wanted to transform into like an anime sort of like character, and then they would try to like I don't know, like let's like make their nose into like this really tiny bits of like body part, and then it's just this kind of aesthetics has been even like has been changing based on this like virtual sort of like creations and all that. I don't know, like that is also some kind of there's also another things that fascinate me a lot about
It
how that is affecting our daily life.
For sure, it goes both ways, right?
Absolutely.
It's that, sort of virtual life or mediated life, affects physical life, and the virtual world affects real life. You know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
the that circular that circular path of it's creating an ecosystem, but
Mm. Yeah. And it's also really fascinating, like seeing that basically like human beings create virtuality is trying to mimic reality as much as possible. But on the other hand, like the virtual like the materials in the virtual world is trying to like influence I don't know everyone's daily life as well. Like people are bringing like the aesthetics they are creating in the virtual world into their reality, and which
Absolutely.
is just crazy.
Although
Absolutely.
I do think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity of virtual worlds that I could do all of these things in the virtual world that I can't do in reality, right? In a virtual
Mm,
reality, I could fly, or
yeah.
I mean, not just that I could change my identity, which is something, but I could do, you know, so many things that the real world doesn't allow me to. And yet there's still a pull, there's a desire to recreate the real world in a virtual one.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not galloping around as a unicorn, right? It's almost like it has to have so much structure from the real world in order for us to know how to behave in it.
Right.
Mm,
That makes me think about another one of your works I was watching, and it seemed to have a sort of a virtual world that looked like, I'm going to guess it was Hong Kong, sort of
mm,
on the waterfront, and
mm,
everything was kind of mundane. And the characters in the virtual world, which is you and more of you, are kind of everyday boring things, walking down the street, opening a door, sort of shopping, and that kind of, that everyday activity, which as I'm watching the video, I'm projecting like a mystical quality to it, almost because
mm,
I also am projecting my image of that I'm playing a game or something, but then I
mm.
have to find some Easter egg, a magic key or something like that behind the door. And
Right.
I just thought maybe you would talk about that a little bit. I'm trying to remember which piece it was called.
Oh,
Uh,
it's called the dome.
oh, the dome. That's right, the dome.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. It's great that like you've seen that video. And that is actually like I would say an early stage of me uh getting into this new media that I've been using right now. And in that video, like I use different software to create this like scenario. Um, in that video, it's basically about this character who came out from a dome, and then they walk along the street, and then the street is like mimicking a Hong Kong busy like area, busy district, and then they go past like peoples and such, and then some of the people was like copies of me and all that. And then at the end, once they were like following another characters, and then they sort of escaped from that city, but then at the end they realized they were still within another dome. So
Mm.
it's this like loop of like existing and then re-entering, and basically you always like within this dome sort of like coverage, or like in a sense that like control.
It's amazing. I can't tell you, I'm such a science fiction fan, and I think of so many books and stories that have elements of the concepts that you're using in your work. It echoes of so many different narratives, and yet it brings it together in a way that I find really, really poetic.
That's great. I love to hear that.
Mhm.
I'm glad. And I think also this like the digital media sort of allows me to have the freedom on creating certain things that I would never have before. So that may be also another part of the reason why I wanted to engage with this digital media. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so now that we talked about Hong Kong and the
Yeah.
dome, maybe you tell us a little bit about real world Hong Kong and your life and your path to getting here in the US, and how you split your time and how you spend your time in Hong Kong.
Mm, okay. Uh, so basically, I moved from Hong Kong to New York like almost like 7 years ago. I think in 2018. And then at that time I came for grad school, and I at that time I wasn't actually planning to stay afterwards. I thought of like just getting a degree, and because I wanted to teach in Hong Kong, but then I never have a master, and then that is like a basic sort of like requirement for like teaching in uni. And that is also like the main reason why I like go abroad. There was a lot of changes in Hong Kong, and then I saw some kind of like opportunities like in New York, and I was lucky enough to find like certain jobs to sustain like a living in here like a couple years ago. And then I thought, why not? Maybe I should try to like stay here for a bit and see what it leads me to. I would try to go back at least like once a year to see my family and my partner there. And now I mostly go like twice a year when I have like holidays and such.
But do you feel like you really live here, that you're connected to the States or New York or Chinatown, Lower East Side?
Mm. Okay, that's an interesting question. I think I have a love and hate relationship with New York City. And I think a lot of a lot of people have that feeling as well, like living in New York. And the love part was like I feel like when I first moved here, I I was like unexpectedly welcomed by so many different communities. And that was something that I didn't expect. I thought I would experience a lot of like, I don't know, like discriminations and a lot of difficulties and such. But then in general, the people around here like are being super friendly, and it makes me feel like I sort of belongs no matter where I'm from, and that's surprising to me when I first relocated to New York. And then the hate part would be like I hate the cost of living now, like with all the inflations and even like the tariff and everything. I do think that I started to have a lot more difficulties in terms of like finance. But then at the same time, my visa um it's like not allowing me to take whatever jobs. For example, if I wanted to do like a part-time job in a cafe and such, I'm not allowed. I can only like take jobs that is related to my degrees, and that also limit um a lot of different ways that I can actually find some kind of like alternative incomes as
Yeah.
well, I think.
You said you were teaching though. Where do you teach?
Um, like part-time, I'm doing like visiting at SVA, the School of Visual Arts, and then at the CUNY as well.
Right.
Do you have a green card? Are you a resident?
No, I'm on O1.
Your O1 visa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So which
So, which is why it's tricky, is why you can't take whatever job comes along. It has to be related to your area, field of study. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to renew every 3 years. And actually, my visa is gonna expire in July,
oh
and I'm planning to move back for a while, actually.
To
I
move back to
think,
Hong Kong, you mean?
yeah, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Because I've been thinking for about a year, and I'm doing long distance with my partner, and then all my families are in Hong Kong. And right now, like especially seeing all this like political like situations in the state and tariff and everything, like I feel like I wanted to be back, like maybe just for a while, but
Right.
Yeah.
And how is it for artists in Hong Kong at the moment?
It's an interesting question, I think. In Hong Kong, the art scene is pretty small compared to New York. You could easily get to know most of the people in Hong Kong just by staying like a short period of time. And and as an artist in Hong Kong, like for me, I would say like I feel like among peers, they are being really supportive to each other, at least from my generations. I'm from the 80s, and like people from my generations and like older generations, they are being like super supportive to each other. And I feel like we don't really have like a strong sense of like competition in Hong Kong because like it's really small, and we just want like everyone's to like have their opportunity to expose their works and their practice.
And what about government intervention or censorship? Is that an issue at all?
Oh, wow, that's tricky part. Maybe like in general, the artists who choose to stay in Hong Kong, they they could always find ways to like to make their work into the public. And like of course like that is some kind of like restrictions right now, but then I can see like that's also a lot of opportunity for Hong Kong artists right now as well. So like, in terms of the commercial like art world as well as the institutions in Hong Kong, they have been quite like mm, supportive, I would say, to the local artists. Yeah, I think.
Good.
And but then the only thing is that it seems to me that like the fundings from government, it seems to be shrinking a lot. But I'm only seeing that like from like the outside. I'm not like working like within the institution or anything that I don't think I have the right to like sort of like say that is true, but it's just from outside I feel like that is what's happening, I think.
Well, next year you might have a better idea.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, we can follow up.
Right.
And so you've had a very busy winter and spring. Apart from maybe thinking of moving back to Hong Kong, do you have anything else coming up?
I've developed like a really long script from the cast of The Invisible. So that is, I would say that is like the very, very first episode of this world that I'm creating. And now I have to like continue building like the second and the third and the continuous episode of the stories. I'm hoping that I could get into like different levels of like storytelling as well as the 3D world building thing. So I would say I'm like learning while making at the same time.
Right. Right. That's great.
Yeah.
We hope we all are.
Yes,
learning.
exactly. That's our goal, really.
Right.
So thank you. Thank you for coming and doing this podcast, and thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been really interesting to listen to you talk about your work too.
Yeah.
For our listeners, if you want to know more about Wai's work, you can visit waistudio.com.
Please take a moment to hit the like button, rate us, and review the show. It makes a big difference in helping us reach more listeners.
Your tax-deductible donations make this podcast possible. Please support us at internationalarrivals.org.